You know what I mean? So if I got a voice to where I can, hey, coach, I see this. You know, what you think about this? Then it's like, oh, okay. Like somebody that trusts me, that believes in me, that understands me, that I'm just not I'm not a system player. I am a system.
As fans of sports in general, you tend to get a variety of different opinions on a bunch of different topics, good and bad. Some things are way more polarizing than others, where you're going to have different perspectives everywhere. But one thing I believe we collectively as NBA fans have now agreed on is the James Harden stuff has gotten weird, unjustifiable, and honestly has become a trend. The Los Angeles Clippers, a team I never really believed in before James Harden, now they're 0-4 since acquiring and incorporating James Harden into the lineup. And yes, I understand it's early. It's a very small sample size, and anytime you put something together so odd with so many different kinks to figure out, it's going to be massive growing pains. But with this one, I don't really see much of the light at the end of the tunnel. It's for seasoned perimeter players well into their careers with relatively high usage rates for the majority of their primes, now on one team trying to make it work. The only real positive that I've seen from this trade from the beginning is really the insurance policy factor, where if one or two of the stars gets hurt, which is an extremely high chance given the history of these players, you have one or two more to plug in. But together, it never really worked. James Harden can be the perfect stabilizer if, say, a Kawhi gets hurt or Paul George gets hurt and you need somebody to kind of hold it down and keep things afloat. But again, how does it work when they're all healthy together? Spoiler alert, it really doesn't. Now, to me, James Harden joined this team saying possibly the dumbest thing I think I've ever heard given the context of what's actually going on. Now, I've heard Carmelo laugh at the possibility of coming off the bench a few years back, and to me, that was delusional. I've heard Russell Westbrook flex his resume at the worst possible time trying to join the championship team. But what James Harden said joining this team tops all of that. He said in Philly, he was essentially boxed into a system when indeed his play style really is the system. Now we know James Harden, given his years back in Houston, he was extremely spoiled. I don't think anybody had more of a green light to do really whatever they wanted for one specific team than James Harden in that time frame. But with even how dominant he was in the awards and the accolades he collected, he never won. That play style always plateaued. It wasn't always his fault, but we heard Kobe talk about how that stuff really doesn't work. We heard Draymond talk about the game plan when playing those Houston teams and how collectively it never led to the ultimate team goal.
So our game plan was let James do his thing. Even if we get down 15 points, we'll be fine. Just got to stay the course. And we'll come back and win. And every game, they were up. Every game that we won, they were up 15 to 20 points. And we came back and walked them down. Most of the time, we would walk them down by halftime.
A little off topic, but look at the Dallas Mavericks. We know Luka, he's simply a ball-dominant figure. That's what he does. He's a system within himself, and that's how he's most effective. But this season specifically, his team is getting out to the best start of his career personally, and why is that? Well, they added that lob threat now out of Duke, Derek Lively, who's making a massive difference. He trusts Kyrie. The team is collectively shooting 40% from deep. And even though it's still relatively high, like I said, Luka is always going to have the ball in his hands. He's averaging his lowest career usage percentage since his rookie year. I say all that to say sacrifice is imperative when combining talent for the ultimate goal. And James Harden delusionally seemed to not understand that when joining arguably the team that requires the most sacrifice in the entire NBA. Since James Harden joined the Clippers, and I'm not saying it's all individually his fault, but they've simply been the worst team in basketball. James Harden doesn't really know how to play off ball, so he's dribbling when he gets wide open threes because he kind of has to get into that rhythm. All of them are not really trying to step on each other's toes, which is making it kind of hard for them to score. They're averaging the lowest point total since acquiring James Harden with 4 proven scorers. The ball movement and the flow and the continuity of the offense is weird and awkward, and they average the lowest assist total since acquiring James Harden. We know Russ and Harden are 2 of the best ball distributors in the league during their primes, but they do it solely with the ball in their hands. They're ball dominant players. It's only one basketball. And defensively, they've been bad and out of sync collectively. Again, I'm not blaming all James Harden individually, but you can tell when he's on the floor, it's a lot of confusion and they're not quite meshing well. Since he joined the Clippers, You know what player has the worst plus minus in basketball? It's James Harden by a pretty sizable margin, and he's by far the worst on his team. Their odd Big Four lineup with Russ, Kawhi, PG, and Harden is actually one of the worst net rating lineups in the league, and they can't produce efficient basketball on either side. Numbers don't always tell the full story, but this stuff is just glaring. When he's off the court, they have one of the best offenses in the league. When he's on the court, they have by far the worst. This man has a minus 25 net rating when he's on the floor, and defensively, he's been pathetic, and offensively, he's been ineffective, which kind of defeats the purpose because that's his value. Now again, like I said, it's extremely early, but I just don't feel optimistic about this group playing well together at all. It's not enough sacrifice in the world to make up for it only being one ball in 48 minutes in a game. Again, I get why they made this trade, going all in on the team that you can't really trust injury-wise. But look at Russ. This man, going back to last year's regular season, last year's playoffs, and the beginning of this year, with the Clippers, he was playing some of the best, most efficient basketball of his career. I remember last April making a video on how this man completely transformed the offense. In the 5 games prior to getting James Harden this year, that big three was a combined plus 231 plus minus. Since getting James Harden, that big four is a combined minus 156. That stuff is telling. Before getting James Harden this year, and again, I know it was an extremely small sample size, but they were one of the only teams that were top 5 offensively and defensively. Since getting James Harden, they're the worst team offensively and they can't stop anybody. I'm gonna keep calling the James Harden situation weird, especially in Philly, because to me there, he was in the perfect situation, especially given the specific stage of his career. You're not in your 20s anymore, and you can't beat players off the dribble like you quite used to. You can't score like you used to. You can't carry the load like you used to. And you were playing beside the MVP who led the league in scoring, and you were the primary ball handler and decision maker as you're arguably the best point guard in the NBA when you want to be. And you were playing in the weaker conference, and you were playing beside one of the emerging stars with Tyrese Maxey. I just don't get it. To me, he had everything catered to fit the specific stage of his career right now, and it was never enough. And he forced his way out and desperately wanted to get to a team that, to me, doesn't even have the space to allow him to do what he's still good at. Again, I just don't get it. Obviously, what makes it even worse is how great and how together Philly looks now that James Harden is gone. Tyrese Maxey looks completely unlocked. Joel Embiid is still Joel Embiid. He never really needed James Harden, and he's throwing subtle jabs saying the team has no ego. Kelly Oubre, before his accident, was playing extremely well. So again, the Clippers being drugged down since acquiring James Harden and the 76ers elevating since losing him, it just makes this man look more like a cancer. With how loaded the West is, especially now with Denver and the Warriors and the Lakers, if they can ever get their stuff together, the Suns, the Pelicans, the Timberwolves, all these teams, it's going to be a dogfight for that last play-in spot. And to me, again, I don't really see much of the light with this thing working together. I hate to say injuries is the only way I can see this stuff meshing, but it really is. If you guys like this video, tell me in the comments what you guys think is the biggest problem with James Harden on this Clippers team. To me, nobody really has a designated role like they used to, and that's a problem because they're all used to being the stars, and now somebody has to make the sacrifice. Not even somebody, a lot of them do, and it just doesn't really work. Like I said, like the video if you like the video, follow my social media sites, turn on post notifications, do all that great stuff, guys, and until next time, as always, stay tuned.